Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode in my series on the Witcher lore. Last time we looked at the necrophages, the seemingly undead horrors that included everything from drowners to folklets to the grave hags to the water hags to ghouls and the rot fiends. Today though we are going to be looking at a class that I've been wanting to do or remake a video on for a long time now, and those are none other than the Draconids. Which starts us off with the question, what even are Draconids? First and foremost, Draconids are not actually dragons, they are very different creatures altogether. They look like dragons, but they don't have the same size, they don't have the same anatomy, and not even to mention the fact that they can't even breathe fire, generally speaking. And also there is a difference that the Draconids appeared during the event known as the Conjunction of the Spheres, which was the event that threw many different races and monsters and all the different creatures into a single world. Whereas dragons had existed inside of the Witcher universe for many thousands of years before that event even occurred. In addition to that, Draconids are very primal and very instinctive creatures, meaning that they don't really have any idea about compassion or being able to drive themselves on motivation. They're quite literally the same as drowners are or as any other type of monster is when it comes to the very basic mentality that they might have. Whereas dragons are the complete opposite in that respect. They are very intelligent, they're very compassionate creatures, and they don't just go around mindlessly slaughtering everyone in the ways that most people would have you believe. In actual fact, dragons are only now rare because of the fact that they were either driven off by raging wars or slaughtered by giant hunting parties in the older times that saw the massive beasts as a threat. But today we'll be looking over the Wyvern, pronounced either Wyvern or Wyvern depending on what you like, the Basilisk, the Forktail and the Slizard. Also, I won't be including the cockatrice in this video because I included them in the videos on the hybrid, so if you'd like to have a look at that then you can, because the cockatrice is an interesting creature because it kind of meets the halfway point between being either a hybrid or the Draconid, because it basically takes enough from either class to be either one of the two. As like all Draconids that are often mistaken for dragon, this creature in particular is more understandable as to why that would be. They are dangerous but are much smaller and cannot breathe fire, however do spit a type of venom that can burn and melt flesh. Feared throughout the land, they are mostly found nesting in northeastern Velen, however have been known to be extremely adaptable, and can also be found in the Isles of Skellige. Although they do try and hunt as big of animals as they can, such as sheep, they will not stray away from the fights against humans, and if winning, will undoubtedly not turn down a meal of unfortunate peasant with, a side of Pinot Noir or some French wine that I definitely know the name of. They do have the general look of a dragon in many ways, from their jaw to their wings and the running of spikes down their spines, and it's interesting to think that despite their size they are so commonly mistaken as a dragon. It's also possible that a wyvern spits acid that has a burning sensation, so stories that spread about the fact that they might breathe fire because of how the wounds burn the skin, and how rumours are naturally spread and then twisted into something else from one person to the next. There is also one other variant known as the Royal Wyvern, which is being the more dangerous of the two and is also the more intelligent, being a very good hunter and being able to understand and learn from its own mistakes, basically in a very strange way studying the common attitude and the pattern of its prey, which means that hunting one of these is much riskier and is a much more intense battle than that of a general wyvern. Normally, a wyvern will attack from the air, attempting to knock down its prey using its wings. Once landed, it will then attack with a tooth-filled jaw, attempting to take attention away from its most fatal weapon, which is the stinger that can be found at the end of its long tail. A single strike from this carries the risk of poisoning from a very powerful and very concentrated toxin. Each Witcher will experience wrenching pain when injected with the venom, but the potion Golden Oriole will render the drinker immune to the poison, and it also neutralizes the effects of the toxins already in the bloodstream. And don't forget to have a very thick coating of Draconid oils on your blade, and unless you have some special munition that is other than that of a normal crossbow bolt, using that against these creatures is particularly useless if you are attempting to bring it down to the ground, because of how thick their scales are. However, using ZARD and a grapeshot bond can ground a wyvern, and once down it will prefer to strike with its talons and its teeth and its tail. It is possible to parry the bites and clawing, but the consequences can be very dangerous, and overall it's better to stay further away and try and attack during the moments when it's left defenseless. Dwelling within dark and damp locations such as cellars, caves and city sewers is where the Basilisk enjoys living. And despite liking the dark, they strangely enough hunt by day. They wait for their victims to come to them, only to leap out, unleashing what is normally a very deadly attack. They are extremely dangerous, but despite this, many hunting parties go in search for such beasts, mainly because of their skin. Basilisk leather is a highly valued material, being made into everything from armor, shoes, purses, and even lining the seats of the fanciest chairs available. Many such hunts that are led by these very gold-thirsty individuals end as a complete and utter slaughter due to either the wrong men being employed or the thought that these beasts would be easily taken care of. However, obviously, some of these hunts are very successful, which has led to the decline in the creature's numbers and the uprise of even more extensive hunts by men who have more money and more numbers. Some druids and even a few mages have put forth the declaration that such hunts should stop and that the basilisk should be safeguarded as a dying species, but of course everyone thinks such people are mad, and the probability is that these beasts will eventually be hunted to extinction. A good example of this is that there is another variant of basilisk known as a silver basilisk, which was once a very dominant species, but again due to the hunting is now very rare. The most recent one was found being only in Toussaint, and whether or not there are any more is entirely a mystery. A very common misconception with a basilisk is that they can turn anything to stone with a single glance of their eyes, but this is however grossly untrue, and how the rumours started was likely due to old stories by men that were frozen with the sheer fear of what they were faced with. They attack with acid, venom, claws and teeth while in combat with witches, and have been observed parrying sword strikes with their wings. They can leap up into the air, landing overhead blows with their claws, and are also able to hover as they fly, spitting acid down at their opponent, which makes it very difficult to know exactly which direction any of their attacks will be coming from. Like the wyvern, it is suggested to drink golden oil for resistance against the venom and to coat your blade in draconid oils. As for bombs, you can either use dancing star and or grape shot, which is useful to bring them down to the ground, and the signs suggested are Igni and Ard, which may knock down a basilisk or stun them just long enough for you to critically wound them. This is another Draconid that has many eerie similarities to that of a dragon. The Forktail is a common beast found throughout the world from White Orchid all the way to the Isles of Skellige. They are named after and indeed famous for their tails, which at its end is swung a very large spike-like growth which looks like a fork. One that they use in combat to devastating effect, and it has been noted to be more like a cleaver than something from a real animal. They are large creatures, but that doesn't stop them from being very quick as they catapult themselves from the ground into the air, attacking and knocking back enemies with blows from their wings. They also use their weight and their strength to kill larger animals. Many times they will be found often hunting in the open ground, going after mainly cattle, sheep, pigs, although they will also hunt the occasional human. They are definitely the more cocky and ambitious of the Draconids, knowing that they are feared and capable of putting up a fight. In actual fact, Forktails have killed more humans than all dragons combined, largely due to their numbers and their aggressiveness. And speaking of aggressiveness, they are just as aggressive as wyverns, and the stingers on the tip of their tail are highly poisonous, which can only be countered by evading. Their snapping jaw should be avoided if losing your limbs doesn't really seem to be that appealing. You can also parry such attacks from their teeth, but it is very difficult to do, and the window of opportunity you have is very brief. Using either your crossbow and or the grape shot bomb can be useful for grounding them, and once down, the Forktail is still very dangerous but just less mobile, turning to other tactics centered around using its massive size and the spike-covered tail. So be prepared to move aside quickly as they turn and spin to try and strike you. As always, use golden oriole to counter the toxins, slaver your blade in Draconid oils, and the ZARD sign can also bring them down very quickly. They are the closest you will ever get to a fight with a real dragon, as they are large, using their weight against you, able to combat their enemies equally from the ground and from the air, and on top of which they can also breathe fire. From my understanding, they are the only Draconid that can actually do this, and they use it to great effect against those who would dare to fight them. In many cases, such hunters are completely unprepared for the fight, and it often leads to the inevitable slaughter of any that were involved. As to why Slizards are so often mistaken for other Draconids, there are a few details besides that being solely around their appearance. The main reason being that all Slizards were wiped out in Redania by the Crinford Reavers, Redania basically being a part of the Northern Kingdoms and the Crinford Reavers being a band of mercenaries that specialised in dragon and Draconid hunting. Which means that many other hunters that come from Redania to Toussaint, for example, often think Slizards are extinct and therefore are never expecting to fight such monsters. Although Slizards can also be found lurking in the Dragon Mountains that are located at the furthest point north of the Northern Realms, situated in Corvair. There is one other recorded variant known as a Slizard Matriarch that is essentially a larger and more dangerous version of its cousin, and that can be found in Toussaint under the contract name of Bovian Blues. Fighting Slizards can be dealt with in many different ways, and usually the same tactics that apply for other Draconids can be applied here. You cannot parry the strikes from their tails, and you can do almost nothing against their fiery breath apart from using Quinn. They are very aggressive and will leap from the ground and then back down with incredible speed and force. They will also pause mid-flight, hovering high above you while spouting fire, at which point trying to ground them can be a very good idea, but again the window of opportunity is very small. You can use a grape shot bomb, a slathering of Draconid oils, and also ZARD or a crossbow bolt to bring them down and make them easier to deal with. So that covers the basics of Draconids. I really enjoyed making this video, even more so than some of the others because of just how badass and interesting dragons are to me and how much I love them in general mythology and general fantasy, so it was fucking awesome to read about them in this case. And I might actually make a video on the real dragons from the Witcher world, but that would require firstly more resources and a different way of structuring the videos because I'd need to draw some images for the actual dragons, and there should be enough information from the Witcher books and the short stories to create something substantial, but we'll just have to see. And I also just want to say a very deep thank you to someone very special for helping me out with painting the undead bear that you see in the intro, and for the last video there were painted 2 paintings of a foglet and a rot fiend, and I've left links to their portfolio down below, so please check them out if you have a moment because it's just really fucking wonderful. And at the moment I'm kind of juggling around what video to do next, but you can leave your suggestions down below and maybe I'll make a video off of one of those depending on how many people would like that, but we'll see what happens. The fact that we're at 6,000 subscribers now really makes me feel like we're building a lot of community here, because there are people that do come back to watch these videos, and I know who you are, so if you're one of those, hi, because that's really awesome. So thank you again so much for watching. There will be more videos coming out soon, and until the next one, you all go and have a good day. Cryptozoology.